Well, hello and welcome to the Super Connector show, where I'm delighted to be joined by Gillian Dodd, who has over 25 years experience as a coach and trainer for UK-based SMEs and also global brands in industries including tourism, hospitality, manufacturing, oil and gas, finance, FMCG, third sector, local government and healthcare. But she's also a qualified yoga therapist and educator of yoga teachers. And she's committed to dispelling the myth that you need to be slim, bendy, and flexible to access the benefits of yoga for a pain-free and functional body. Hello, Gillian. How are you doing?
Hi there, Paul. Hi, good morning. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, that's good. I'm looking forward to getting into this. Well, I'm slim, but I'm definitely not bendy, and I'm definitely not flexible, right? So I'm hoping you can give me some tips on how to do that. But I know we met good few years ago, at least 5-6 years ago, I think, and we've spoken quite a lot about the yoga therapy that you were doing. So yoga for anyone of any age, any size, any skill level. I know that's a big thing that you're passionate about. But before we get into that, do you just want to tell me a bit more about your background as a coach and a trainer and what you do now?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. So I think, in a nutshell, I help people with what they're stuck with, in the head, in their career, and more latterly, in the body. And the thing about coaching, I've been coaching, I think, since my first job, which was
Right.
a good while ago. Yeah, so yeah, my background is in the
Before it was
travel.
such a thing, yeah, it's become sort of a
Before,
popular thing,
yeah,
isn't it now?
yeah,
Loads of people say
yeah.
they're a coach, but you've been a coach like before it was fashionable, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I have, and I think, I was at work. I worked for a tour operator in Jesmond, and yeah, I was the person that new people used to sit beside me, and I would show them the ropes. I was from
Right.
Burnetfield, quite friendly, and so I suppose it started then early on in my career, and I went on in the travel and tourism industry to be promoted to a supervisor and manager. So coaching's really part of that, isn't it? It's part of a manager's toolkit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, back in the day, and it's probably 30 years ago actually,
Wow.
where I did some NLP practitioner training.
Yeah.
So, became an NLP practitioner when it was fairly new. And yeah, I've just always been involved in um, in training and development, but also I've been an operational manager as well. So at work as well as because after a while, when I was promoted, I worked down in London, set up an operation in Luton Airport for the organisation I worked for,
Wow.
um, and also worked overseas for them. So always kind of replicating a success story, if you like.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of recruitment, selection, uh, coaching, and training. It was a very competitive market,
Mhm.
and so we always had to be the best at what we did. So I had really great grounding in those years in the travel and tourism industry. Um, so and in customer service as well. So and it was moving on from the travel and tourism industry, um, that I started to find out about other organizations as well and other ways of being and working. Yeah, I worked for a consultancy in London, the L&R Group, and yeah, Robert Lederman and Simon Roncaroni. I've got both of the books on my bookshelf here, and oh, do you know what? I was really privileged to work for them. So they brought the concept, Paul, of customer care lines to the UK,
Okay.
and I had a bit of a fancy title there. I was program director, actually what that meant was, I looked after one of their programs. So it was working with clients like Unilever, Hewlett Packard, and creating customer care centers, contact centers.
Mhm.
This is in the early 90s.
Mhm.
Um, so and I've been going to yoga since I was 19, by the way, Paul. And, you know, even then, when I was working for the L&R group, I used to do breath and movements with people who were answering the telephone. So I was coaching and training, but also, when people were stressed, because it's quite a stressful job, um, bringing in breath and movement techniques. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I have been coaching for for a very long time.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah,
amazing. Well, you said, I think at the start of that, you said about how it was, I think you said something about how it was like not natural or easy or obvious or something like that. But I don't think it is for everyone, because some people get promoted to being a manager, but don't really they don't really like people. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes people get promoted to a position of management because that's just the way that they progress in their career. But to be a good coach and a good trainer and to do good customer service, I think you've actually got to like people. You've actually got to like have some sort of empathy or rapport with people, which not everyone has, but you definitely do have. And first time I met you, I was just well, I just got on great with you, and I just really, really liked you. So you've obviously got. It might come easy to you, but it doesn't come to everyone. So do you think that's? Do you agree that that's important to be a good coach and a good trainer?
Well, I think, and thanks for those nice comments as well, Um, and I suppose when you're saying that, I also think that it can be learned, it can
Mhm.
be learned. And I think what's coming to my mind here is Myers-Briggs,
Yeah.
Myers-Briggs, all the different personality types.
Mhm.
And yes, and there'll be some statistics as well that show this, that there's certain personality types that are gonna have more empathy, aren't they?
Mhm.
And perhaps more natural rapport skills. Um, but yeah, I think you're right, not everyone likes people and likes to work with people, but,
Mhm.
you know, th as you say, they'll be promoted to roles because of their operational proficiency, and
Yeah.
that gets really tough for people, doesn't it, then when they've got the people stuff to deal with?
Yeah.
Um,
That's because often people get promoted because they're technically very good at what they do, or like a high performer in that role, and then they get given management responsibility. But I think maybe you can be a good trainer if you're like training someone and showing someone how to do something, like the processes or the systems or the practical elements of a role. To be a coach where you're bringing out the best in others, or to be a really, really good manager where I think this about teachers as well, like school teachers,
yeah,
educators, but definitely managers. The best managers are the ones who are there to remove barriers, just to like make provide someone with the environment where they can thrive and they can do well. So
yeah.
if you're a coach or a trainer or a manager, you've got an opportunity to do all of those things.
You have, and it's a privilege as well, I think it's a privilege as well, um,
Mhm.
to help people to, open up about what they're stuck with.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
yeah,
an easy job, is it, being a manager, really,
yeah,
you know? So helping people open up to what's tricky.
yeah. And I know I'm just thinking about my own career as well. I know sometimes I've had managers where you're much more willing and happy to do that because and then there's others where you may be a bit like nervous about opening up about things because you think you're going to be penalised, or things are going to go against you if you open up about things that you're finding difficult.
Yeah,
Um, but uh, but yeah, if you, on your LinkedIn profile in the blurb that I used to promote this, I talked about you say if a lot of the people that you work with are people who are feeling a bit stuck, and they're maybe at a point in their career or their life where things aren't quite going the way they want them to, or maybe not as planned, and they've got some decisions to make, or they need to make some changes. So is that who you want to work with, or who you think that you work best with at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, and I think this I work with people who are stuck. Yeah, definitely. And I have done for a long time. And um, whether it's about stuck in their career, um, you know, redundancy at a crossroads, they've got a life change. It might be a change that they didn't choose, you
Mhm.
know, that's come along. And you know, sometimes it's the body as well that's holding stress.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I work with people, every day at the
Yeah.
moment, and want to continue to do so, as well, to help people to move forward, because that's the difference, isn't it, between coaching and counselling as
Mhm.
well. Coaching about, right, what have we got here, and how can we move forward? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you wanna explain that a bit more for anyone that maybe hasn't had a counselling or mentoring before? What
Yeah,
is the difference between the
yeah,
2?
yeah. So somebody presents with a situation that they're stuck with, and they may come to me for coaching. Right, but actually, there's something really big and heavy that's happened.
Mm.
I don't know. So, for an example, it might be, I don't know, a death or something like that that's happened fairly recently, and the person's really struggling.
Mhm.
So I think there's different ways to deal with that. So counseling helps you to open up and go back the way and
Mm.
stay in the past, with what's happened, how's it made you feel, so that you can really open up and talk about that.
Mhm.
Not necessarily then with questions about, okay, so what are you going to do now? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So um, so I think that's a marked difference between counselling and coaching.
Yeah.
And coaching is more, okay, so where are we now? What's going on in the present? What are what's some of the narrative? What do you want to do in terms of moving forward? And people who come to me, maybe that I'll signpost them to a counsellor,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, if that's
That's
appropriate. So, but with coaching, it's right. Okay, so let's deal with the present. What's occurring? What's interfering with what you want to do next?
yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good explanation. Well,
Yeah,
I'll say, good few years ago, I had a little bit of counselling because something like was going on in my personal life, and it was just like I was struggling to just get my head around it, like what was going on, and I felt like I was stuck in a bit of a loop where I was just like going round in circles. And actually, the best thing, it was offered through work, actually, like a job that I had. The best thing was just being able to talk it out, just talk through it and get it
yeah,
out in the system to someone that
yeah,
was compassionate and willing to listen and not judging or anything like that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but but at the end of it, basically the best thing was like, okay, you've got it all out. There's nothing wrong with you. You're totally fi you've done nothing wrong here.
yeah,
The situation is not good for you. Like,
yeah,
you know what you need to get out of that. I mean, they didn't quite say it, but, like, you need to get out of that situation, which I did. But that's what I needed. I needed to just be able to talk it through and get it out of my system. Whereas when I've had coaching, it's been much more, proactive and positive and, okay, I might feel a bit stuck in certain areas, but it's much more, "Right, we're in this together. Let's work together to
yeah,
get to where you wanna be," and it's more future focused
yeah.
than stuck in the past or going around in
Exactly.
circles. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely, definitely.
and,
Um,
go on, sorry.
No, no, no. I was just thinking as well, when I've had tough stuff as well, that counselling has a place,
Mm.
and it has had for me as well, and has yoga therapy. We might come on to that shortly, but
Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, a lot of people don't have either. Like, often they don't have anyone that they can talk to about this stuff, especially if they're closest friends or family or the problem, it's difficult, or even work colleagues, maybe they can't open up to work colleagues either. So I would definitely encourage people to, there are resources out there. There's online resources, there's support out there, there's apps, there's websites, there's all kinds of stuff that you can tap into, um, but sometimes you really do just need a real person to talk to that knows what they're doing and can guide you.
Absolutely, and you're right. There are so many choices, aren't there? There's so many choices out there, but yeah, it's great to be part of something that helps people. You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Well, we'll
yeah,
we'll go on to yoga in a little bit, but I noticed on your website, you've got you're sort of saying that you're working with people who are, um, maybe career changers or, pre-retirement planners, so
yeah, yeah.
that the major life changes, if especially if someone's job or career has defined them and that's who they are, and then who are they when that ends? So, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing that for over 10 years.
Right.
Um, yeah, I have. And you're right, that's another crossroads, isn't it? It's another
Mhm.
crossroads. It might be that people are being made redundant. There's a major change at work, and yeah, and I'm just thinking about someone, fairly recently who, their work, their career, the organization that they worked for was everything to them, you
Mhm.
know, and finding out that they were going to be made redundant was a massive blow. And yeah, it's helping people, that might need a good listen to around all of that as well. It's a bit like the grieving process,
Mhm.
going through a redundancy, um, but also looking at, right, okay, so what are we going to do? So it's holding space for people, finding out a bit more about them, and about looking at transferable skills as well, and
Yeah.
strengths. And often, when you've been hit with that news that your job's not going to be yours anymore, the last thing you're thinking about is, well, I'm really good, and I've
Mhm.
got
Mhm.
great skills and strengths.
Yeah.
This guy in particular hadn't had an interview for years,
Uh-huh.
and so yeah, so we move through that, and what I do is to help people recognize their skills and strengths,
Yeah.
um, and also the values. And I think if you start from a place of what are you good at and what do you really value, um, and 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 then support them into the job market or into active retirement if that's where they're at.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm just thinking about this particular chap, who he's now got a secondment. He's now got a secondment, and initially that didn't look like it was on the cards.
Mhm.
And I think for me, it's helping people to grow their confidence as well at that
Yeah.
time, and help with the kind of narrative that people often get, which is nobody's going to employ me. I've worked there for too long.
Mhm.
Um, I'm institutionalized, those kind of things. The it's narrative that isn't so helpful, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
It's hard to think clearly and make a good decision when you're under stress and under pressure as well. So if someone's being made redundant, or they're at threat of redundancy, and they're thinking, especially if they've got a family, or they think, or big mortgage or lots of outgoings, and they're thinking, how am I gonna.
the stress is massive. They're very stressful times in people's lives. Can be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And many, many years ago, I've been made redundant. Like, what would be miss was it my first? No, my second second job after university. Yeah, working for British Airways. 11 months in, they just got
Actually,
rid of
yeah, British
hundreds of
Airways, right.
people. It was overnight. It was just like, okay, right, I've got nothing. There's nothing I can do about this. But actually, I just saw it as an opportunity to do something completely different, which was great, and very. I had an amazing time actually doing something completely different. But it is difficult. Like, I know, and I've spent a bit of time working in recruitment as well, where I've been helping people find roles, and
Yeah,
I
sure you have, haven't
how
you?
dif-
Yes,
I know how
Paul.
difficult it is to, it can be quite demoralizing if you're going for jobs and not hearing back. Or I know I've got a friend of ours who was applying for hundreds of jobs and often not hearing anything, but he was
Yeah,
just so focused on finding another job. That's
yeah,
all he could think about. He wasn't taking any time out to try anything different or anything new. It was just everyday job application. But he was getting really annoyed and frustrated and quite not in a good place. But he did get a good job in the end. But in amongst all of that, he could have maybe tried some other things and had a bit of fun along the way and
yeah,
learned some skills as
yeah.
well.
And I think that's having a coach work with you alongside that as well. Helps as helps you to take care of yourself as well at the same time. So
Mhm.
I would advise people to really think about what makes you happy in life
Mhm.
anyway, and to be doing some of that. Be
Yeah,
around people who know you and know you as your best self as well.
yeah, yeah,
That those things are important, and yeah, and to look at different ways into employment, but don't be stuck on the job boards the whole time.
no.
Because otherwise, Paul, you end up in places of lack,
Mhm,
and rejection,
mhm,
which
mhm.
really is not a brilliant place to be hanging about, is it?
No, no. Well, that's why, like, I know recruitment consultants do have a bad rep. Like, so there are some bad recruitment consultants and bad internal recruiters as well, right? But having worked in recruitment, I totally get the value of a good recruitment consultant. There's nothing to lose by talking to recruitment consultants and telling them that you're in the market, you're looking for a new role, and let them do all the legwork. Like, don't you can still look for jobs, but if you've got a bunch of people who are actively looking for roles, who are speaking to employers all the time, if they're advocating for you and putting you forward, and they're willing to spend the time with you and understand what makes you tick and what you're
Well,
looking for.
yeah,
Why
I
would you
agree.
do
Yeah,
that?
I agree with you. Get somebody to do your work for you. I think there's a key thing that you said. A good recruiter,
Yeah.
a
Aye.
good recruiter. Somebody who's recommended. Then absolutely. And I think the other thing is get on as many people's radars as you
Mhm,
can.
mhm.
People often ask me about using LinkedIn when they're looking for roles, and there's obvious ways to use LinkedIn, but actually having a look on LinkedIn to see, right, okay, who knows your work, even from years back. And do you not think LinkedIn's got a bit more benevolent as well since COVID,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that sending messages out to say, I'm in this situation, redundancy situation somewhere in my career, can you offer me some help or advice? And
Mhm,
not necessarily to be saying any jobs going where you are, you
mhm,
know,
mhm.
not
Yeah,
necessarily that, but just get on as many people's radars as you can. Because
yeah,
the latest statistics are, you know, 65 to 70% of people are finding jobs through the network.
uh-huh, yeah,
So that says something about how to spend your time when you're looking for work.
mhm.
And it's not being on the job boards all day, every day till you're
No,
stressed out.
yeah,
So yeah, and it's something I really love doing. I really do love supporting people that are at that kind of crossroads, and it's all about stressing less and keeping well, whilst you're making the change.
yeah, definitely. There's a lot about the kindness of strangers as well, or loose ties, loose connections, 'cause, think people often think that it's their closest contacts that are going to help them get another job, but often it's just someone they've maybe met once or
Oh,
just in passing, or a friend of a friend or something. But if they don't know that you're looking, or that you're open to something new, then you'd be surprised. Well, people will be surprised how often opportunities come their way just
oh
by
yes.
putting it out there.
Just
Uh,
putting it out there, definitely. Yeah, yeah, and I think there's something there about, if you're in this kind of position, is getting over yourself.
yeah,
So start telling people.
yeah,
And I heard about one thing, Paul, where this guy, I said, oh, he was going for an interview, and I said, where did you find out about it? He said, I was putting the bins out. I was putting the
yeah.
bins out. I've got a new neighbour, and he said, I followed that bit of advice. I just thought, I'm gonna tell everybody I know that I'm looking for work. And
What's
he said, I
uh-huh.
work for HR. I didn't know he worked for HR. So and of course, he has to have the interview and all of that. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Shy Ben's getting out. All of that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's it. But do it in a positive way. I think that's the thing. Like people are drawn to energy. So if people are, like, I'm thinking of someone else who's had a difficult time finding jobs, but like sometimes the posts that they're putting on LinkedIn have a negative tone to them, and
Yeah,
it's like it's upsetting. It's not obviously upsetting for them, but like if they were a bit more, I don't know, if they were less on the negative slant, then they would be more appealing to talk to. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, that's just the recruiter in me. But
yeah.
last thing we'll talk about this, and then we'll go on to yoga, because
Okay.
this is fascinating. Is just, well, I have built up a good network online on LinkedIn and other social media channels and whatever, but I'm still learning, and the algorithms are changing all the time. And but something that I've been learning lately is, like, LinkedIn really does want people to share expertise on LinkedIn. So if you have genuine expertise in something, share it on LinkedIn, and even if you don't have a lot of followers, that will be sort of pushed to the forefront. So if you know how to do something, and like, share it, and
Yeah,
and and that
yeah,
that will do well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And it's about what problems that you can solve, isn't it, as well?
Mhm.
And what the world needs at the moment,
Mhm.
and to get really clear about that. I think, that's what I do. I know I've said that, Shy Ben's getting out and all of that. I think it is about not hiding behind what you're good at,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you know, because a lot of people don't know how to sell themselves
Mhm.
either, so it's it's making sure that you're researching as well what's needed, and if
Mhm.
you need some extra training for that, then go for that,
Mhm.
get support to get that, so that you're really well positioned to move into what's needed at the minute as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're gonna talk about yoga now, right? So,
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
so you said you've been doing yoga since you were 19, and then when did you start weaving it into your work, or when did you start offering it as something that you did, like a big part of what you did, like trying
All
to
right.
teach
Yeah.
people how to do yoga?
Okay. So, I think, it was just about 15 years ago where I decided to train to be a yoga teacher.
Right,
I'm a
amazing.
learning and development professional, Paul, so I like to know the far end of everything. Um, so, after going to yoga for such a long time, I decided to train, not necessarily to teach, although I thought I could maybe, I don't know, do that in the local church hall, or something like that, or with my friends.
Mhm,
So I did the training, and yeah, so I think when I first started to bring it into work was I started to ask people who I was working for. So I would be doing a management development or a leadership program, something like that, and say, "Do you know, I'm training to be a yoga teacher. I need some practice.
mhm,
What about bringing it into to the programs. Some people said yes, absolutely. Some people said absolutely not. Sounds like you might have gone all a bit purple, Gillian, and a bit more kind of out there and a bit woo. We're not going to do that. But basically, it was about getting people to put their feet on the floor, and I'm doing it now. Settle in your chair. Where are your sit bones? Where's the sky? Where's the earth? And kind of, just come into the present at the beginning of a leadership program or something like that, and learn about breathing a bit better. So I brought that into work just in that way. So I did the kind of qualification for that takes 4 years. It's the British Wheel of Yoga. So yeah. So once I qualified, I started to think about, well, I could do workplace yoga. So I was invited to a few things to do that, as part of wellness days and that kind of thing. And also in my coaching, then people might have seen on LinkedIn, or I'd mentioned that I'm a yoga teacher as well. And a couple of times people say, "Oh, I've got a really bad knee. Can you help me with that?" And would be, in the middle of a coaching session. So it was kind of just brought in an ad hoc sort of a way, in those kind of settings, in
Yeah.
corporate settings. Um, but then, yeah, I think probably I decided that I wanted to be a yoga therapist as well, right? So I'm trying to think what made me do that. Oh yeah, I went through a really tough time, right, where I had a health issue, which meant I needed an operation. Never been poorly in my life, and the operation went wrong, and I got an infection, and I was really, really quite ill, and I had to have a series of operations, um, which I was in hospital for 2 weeks once, and I was in intensive care for a while. It was all a bit tricky, right? And at the same time, um, I had some personal stuff as well going on. The partner of my children had been poorly for a long time, and he was in an end of life situation. So we're talking horrendous here,
Yeah.
right?
Awful.
Honestly, and I was looking after learning and development for an organization. So, I had a fairly senior role at the time, and I
Yeah.
was only 3 months in my probation.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I'm kind of looking back at that. And anyway, this is about yoga therapy. So I was getting over it, back at home, recovering. And a yoga friend of mine said, "Do you know a yoga therapist might help here?" Um, I didn't even know what that was, actually. And anyway, this lady came, brought some bolsters, cushions, and just started to ask me how I was feeling, like, physically, but also what was going on. So that's the first part of it. Just telling somebody, hey, this is how I'm feeling in my body and my mind, and my mojo, you can imagine it was all a bit tough. So anyway, I paid for some sessions, and it was just brilliant being able to tell somebody what was going on and to help me with things like breathing, coming back to my breath, coming back to the present moment. Um, so, you know, that kind of made me think, oh, this is a bit like coaching and yoga, and it helps people when they're in a really tough spot. I was in a tough spot then, and it was something which really helped me. Um, so moving on, when I started to train to be a yoga therapist, I did that with Yoga United Education down in London. Again, that's another 3-year chunk, but great training, honestly. And it was great, but actually, after a while, I realized that, hey, this is about NLP. I'm already a practitioner. It's about coaching, and it brings together so many of my skills. So yeah, so it and I got better, and I've moved on a lot in life. But I think it's when you've hit those kind of, I can't say it was absolutely rock bottom, but it was very, very difficult.
Mm.
Um, I think when you've been through those kind of things, it helps you appreciate and understand, not really understand, is probably not the right word, but hold space for other
Mhm.
people that
Mhm.
are going through some difficulty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah. I think, well, don't have to, but I think if someone's had a difficult time as well, makes them a better coach as well, or maybe a better yoga therapist. If you've never had any problems in your life and you've never had any adversity, or you've never had to be resilient or sort of dig
yeah,
deep, then
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's, but you have, so well done for
yeah,
doing all that and coming through it, and then also being able to bring all your, like you say, skills and expertise and your what you're really interested in as well. You already had that love of yoga and coaching and training, and being able to bring it all together into a new string to your bow, a new element to your
Well, actually,
to
yeah, it's a powerful part of my toolkit for sure. The yoga and the yoga therapy. It's not for everyone, and if we're talking about the corporate world, and even using the word yoga, you
Mhm.
know, um, I've learned to sometimes not call it yoga,
Yeah.
and and to call it stress less for wellness.
Yeah.
Stress less for wellness, because that's what yoga's about, and for me, yoga isn't about the poses and looking all fancy in the poses. It isn't about that at all. It's about giving people the practical tools to manage stress and to stay present. So to manage stress and to stay present and cope better with everyday life, really.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
So, and if you put the word yoga on it, sometimes people get really confused.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like when you describe the way you've described it there about stress less, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
like who wouldn't want to do that? Like in a like a lot of I've heard a lot of people talk about performance, high performing boards, and like bring out the best in your colleagues, and like some people will be drawn to that sort of language and terminology, others
yeah.
will be drawn to, so words are powerful, aren't they? Like they
Oh, they
can turn
just
people off and turn people on, and like depending on how you
oh,
use
they
it.
just
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely, and the thing is, it is about people in everyday life, and anybody can do this.
mhm,
Um, it's about accessing your parasympathetic nervous system, right? So
mhm,
it's the part of your nervous system which is the rest and digest part. So
mhm,
it's not the full on part, it's the rest and digest part.
mhm,
So the tools that yoga brings helps people to do that,
mhm.
do that. So that might be, I don't know, before you're going into a meeting, if things are getting overwhelming, you know, it's quite simple stuff that you don't need a yoga mat, you don't need to be flexible. Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
you can
mhm.
do it at your desk.
Yeah. So we'll talk a bit more about how things have changed. Do you think people are more receptive to it now than they were maybe 15 years ago, or even just if you mention yoga, or people realize that you're talking about yoga? Do you think they're more open to it now than they were in the past?
Again, I think some people are, but I think there's an issue with yoga where it's taken on this shape that it looks like it's something that people do in a gym,
Mm,
or the need to have the gear, or so. But I think once you talk to people about it and they experience it, they'll go, "Oh, that's what it is.
yeah.
Anybody can do that." But
Uh-huh.
yoga's big, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Um, it,
That's
it is. I've just been to Australia, and everybody's doing yoga in Sydney.
uh,
But even in where I live here, there's lots of different types of yoga. There's hot pod yoga and all of that. And what I'll say is bring it all on, bring it all on, as long as we sprinkle the crumbs of the real yoga, and feed people the crumbs of that. So yeah, it's but what I want to do is to bring the benefits of it to ordinary folk, and people of all in all walks of life and of all shapes and sizes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Do you want to say a bit about the difference between yoga in the East and the West? Because there is like in the East, in the Far East, and India in particular, it's like it is people of all ages and sizes doing it. It's much more
Ah,
of a everyday thing for all kinds of people. Than whereas in the West, it's maybe become much more about fitness and, like you say, look in a certain way, or the clothes that you wear, or the much more commercial focused.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I don't know if I told you this, Paul, but again, it's the learning and development person in me. I like to go to the source of the information. So, and I'd always wanted to go to India, and with that, in mind, and I did. I spent probably about 7 weeks in India. Yeah, do you remember a few years ago?
Yeah, I remember you went, but I didn't realize you were there for that long. 7 weeks.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, they think we're a bit nuts over here in America as well, and Australia, with all of the way that yoga's taken off in the way that it has here. So yeah, and I interviewed people about yoga. What is yoga to them? And it's I'm just having a look at it here because it is still on my desk. I'm writing a book about all of that. I am writing a book about all
Yeah,
of
cool.
that. Yeah. So, but what I wanted to do was to talk to some really learned folk who would answer questions for me. And I had this piece of paper in my bag, and written on it was, tell me what to do, because I've done yoga for 40 years. This is in my question. I've never been in a slim body. What advice do you give me about, carrying on to teach yoga? So I went to visit a swami, right, who's like a learned person in an ashram. And you've got to remember, Paul, my dad's a miner. Was a miner. I'm a really practical person. I've been at operations, I've worked in the corporate world. So, but I wanted some of these questions asked, and yeah, so I did that. Great experience. And what he said was, really have a clean palate, and yeah, make sure that you spread and sprinkle the crumbs of what yoga actually means to people, and
Yeah.
shine your light in your own community, whatever that is, and that you're not going to be able to change what's happening in the world of yoga. And it's all right, it's all right, because it doesn't look like it's a bad thing, does it?
No,
Doesn't look like people are doing bad stuff at all.
no.
So I think for me as an educator, then it's to do that, it's to do that. So, yeah, and that trip to India, it was amazing. And,
I'm not bad.
some of the books on my shelf here I've done lots of studying into yoga and where it all comes from. And lots of the positive psychology that we see bandied about all over the internet, a lot of it comes from yoga, you know,
Mhm, mhm.
about the mind and the body and breath work and all of that. So one of the things that I did, Paul, I wrote a module for the British Wheel of Yoga, which is about it's all about yoga for people of all shapes and sizes. It's all about making sure that, yeah, we make yoga accessible.
Amazing.
So I've had that accredited. So, again, it's my learning and development background. that has kind of driven me to, and I'm passionate about it. You can tell I'm passionate about
Oh,
it,
yeah. Uh-huh.
you know. And my yoga business, it's like anybody can do it. You know, it's yoga for the body you're in. Yoga for
Mhm.
the body you're in. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
So
Love it, love it. So, do you want to tell me a bit more about like who you work with, what type of people you work with, or maybe some examples of who maybe has come to you for support and when and why?
yeah, sure. So, you know, that's always the question. So, so I have I have a studio here. If we're looking at yoga therapy, but actually, you know, since the pandemic, you know, the reach is much greater, isn't it?
Mhm.
So, um, I do this online as well. So I
You were
do
doing
co-
that. You started that weekly, didn't you? During COVID,
I
during the
did.
pandemic. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
did. Remember, I did. And I've kept doing that. And when I was doing my yoga therapy training, I wasn't sure that you could do yoga therapy over Zoom. But
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
actually, you know, you can. So, so I have people joining from Australia, um, and you know, people can join from anywhere. The first thing that I'll ask people is, what brings you to, you know, what brings you to this?
Mhm.
And so yeah, and lots of different things. You know, it might be a musculoskeletal problem that somebody's got, poorly knee, poorly hip.
Mhm.
It could be that, you know, they might be stuck with something to do with the menopause. You know, people might come for some yoga therapy because they've not been able to find what they're looking for elsewhere. It can be that, and actually, I'm just remembering, you know, one person um, who came to me, this lovely guy, Gareth, and I said to him, "So what? You know, what brings you to yoga?" You know, I think that was my question, and he said, "Well, actually, I'm going to be rowing the Atlantic," and I had to kind of listen twice. You know, I'm going to be rowing the Atlantic, and I'd like to be a bit more flexible.
Wow.
That's what I'd like, and you know, so yeah, so I worked with Gareth to help with that, to help with flexibility. And you know, it kind of goes on a journey. It's holding space, isn't it, for somebody, whatever they want to whatever they want to do. And I think COVID stopped Gareth from achieving that straight away. But actually he did go on to do that. You know, he did
Oh,
go on
well
to
done. Well done.
an
So, what
amazing.
was that his background, or was it like totally different to what he had he
Oh, it's Gareth,
experienced before?
it's about raising money. It's about raising money for veterans at ease.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've met him, but he's an amazing chap. And
No, I've not met him. He sounds amazing. Well, he's left a lovely comment on there. I can see he said it'll be a great podcast, and he did say also, looking back on his career, he noticed that the times that are the most productive and enjoyable were when he had a mentor he could go to. So that was a comment on what we said earlier on. But
right, right,
yeah, so
right.
Gareth sounds like an awesome guy. I'll have to check him
Oh,
out.
he's an awesome guy. And I did when I knew I was coming on here, I did check in with him and say, Gareth, can I mention you? And he said, yeah, 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 absolutely. So I mean, that's very extreme, isn't it? Somebody rowing across the Atlantic.
Uh-huh.
But you know, it can be, usually people come to me because they're recommended. You know, they're recommended either
Mhm.
through coaching or through a yoga class or something like that. Or I might meet somebody at one of your events as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all kinds
Well,
of people.
yeah, you talk about events, so you've been to some of my events, but we did our 5-day UK Startup and Scale Up Week festival last summer, around about this time,
Gosh,
probably
it's a year
12 months.
ago, Paul. It's a
But
year ago.
it
Amazing.
was great because you did a couple of really cool things at that. So on the final day, you gave a talk,
I
which
did.
I thought was fantastic. You were so brilliant on that. But also you did some yoga for people before the session. It was before the event got underway on the Thursday, wasn't it? And on the Friday. And
Yeah,
it
it
was
was.
lush to see people doing it with you who maybe some had done it before, but others had never done it before.
No, that's right. That's right. And I think I remember then as well, not calling it yoga. It was under the banner of stress less for wellness.
mhm,
And we forget, that people, coming to events like that, um, they've had a journey to get there,
yeah,
haven't they? You don't know what they're leaving behind at home. They might be going to speak about something, and they might be going with their boss for the first time. Do you know what I mean? There's all
mm,
kinds of things, really. But if you can start to feel better in your body, then, and start to access the parasympathetic nervous system,
mhm,
right? Because you've probably been accessing the other part of your nervous system, even just to get there, So I love doing things like that because you see people kind of loosen up and
uh-huh.
get ready for the day.
Well, sadly, I couldn't do because I was rushing around getting ready for
Well,
the
I
meeting.
remember actually there was a few different venues, and you were always,
Uh,
getting ready and meeting your folk and stuff like
yeah,
that.
but I could see people doing it, and there was a lot of smiling, so people were happy and enjoying it. And that's another thing; it puts people in a good mood, and then
It
maybe
does.
it's a shared experience with the others doing it. So straight away, maybe if they've gone to an event and they don't know anyone, straight away they've got some people that they've got some connection to through that.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
loved it that you offered to do that, and it definitely just added a lovely extra element to the event.
And it
You
was
definitely sprinkled a bit of magic on the event
Well,
those
it was
days.
fun, it was fun, and I think that's what it needs to be as well. Doesn't take long either, doesn't take long and you don't need a mat, you don't need those things. It's kind of practical movement and breathing,
Yeah.
that anyone can do. Yeah.
Uh-huh. No, well, keen to get you doing some of that again at future events. But if there's anyone watching this who's a event organizer, I definitely encourage them to get you involved in that. I know I went to the Entrepreneurs Forum conference, annual conference a few weeks ago,
Oh,
and
did you?
during the lunchtime break, they had some breakout sessions that you could choose from, and that I don't think they had yoga. I think they had a sound bath, which
Oh,
was
good.
interesting,
Yes,
which
lovely.
I've done before, and I did enjoy that, although I fell asleep when I did it. They had a walk, just a guided walk around the grounds of Ramside Hall. They had an art session with Alfie Joey,
Oh,
which
yes, I think I saw that.
really,
Yeah.
really good because I've not picked up a pen or a pencil for probably 20 odd years, but I really enjoyed just taking time out to just sketch and draw, and it was
Yeah.
lovely. But I could I could totally see a yoga session led by you at the next Entrepreneurs Forum conference.
Well, I'd love to. Yeah, it'd be my pleasure to do
Yeah,
that.
so we'll see if we can make that happen. Um, so yeah, so if anyone wants to know about you or wants to work with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, I think the best way to get in touch is to send me a private message. So yeah,
On
just
LinkedIn?
send me a
Yeah,
private message on LinkedIn, and yeah, and I like to talk to people as well, to see what it is that they'd like to do. So yeah, that's the best way to get in touch. And I've got two websites. So
uh-huh,
Yoga for the Body You're In, which is www.yogafbyi.com,
yeah,
right? Um, and the other one's gilliandodd.com. So that one's more about the training and coaching side of things.
yeah.
So those two places, absolutely, or via LinkedIn. Be great to hear from
Amazing.
people.
Yeah, amazing. Well, definitely. Well, I think you're a lovely lady, but you're very, very good at what you do, and I always enjoy our conversations, and I always leave feeling energized and positive. So I haven't done any yoga though. Maybe I need to do
Well,
some
to be honest,
yoga.
Paul, I was thinking, we've just got a couple of minutes. Should we just
Go on,
do something just for a
come
couple
on,
of
let's
minutes?
do some yoga.
Come
Go
on,
on.
let's do something for a couple of minutes. Right. Okay. So this is about, accessing a way to access the parasympathetic nervous system, right?
Okay.
So what I'd like you to do is to make sure that you sat really well on your chair. So that means
Mhm,
come to the edge of your chair,
mhm,
so you know where your sit bones are, and uh, Yeah. Have you got your shoes on or off?
I'll take them off. Hang on.
Take them off. Take them off.
Feet are flat on the floor.
The
Yeah.
only thing to take off, just your shoes. So if you just maybe close your eyes and where's your big toe, where's your little toe, and halfway around your heel at the back. All right. So of course we're not putting our feet right directly into the earth, but we've got a surface here. So a surface for our sit bones, a surface for our feet. That's it. So, and just let the top of your head, the crown of your head lift up. Not force it up, but just, yeah. Where's the sky? But the first thing to do then, so we've settled here, is to lengthen the fingers. So lengthen the fingers, and maybe just wiggle the fingers. That's it. So lengthen. So this encourages blood flow just by doing that. So lengthen the fingers, wiggling the fingers. So let the fingers move. That's it. And then the second place is your shoulders. So let the shoulders roll. So let your shoulders roll. You can do that one by one or both together. And just keep it nice and smooth and easy. And then how's your neck? Can you just let the neck be a little bit more free? Relax your neck. So there's the three places to start with. Our fingers can move. Shoulders can roll. And actually with your shoulders, can you just open your shoulder blades at the back? So open your shoulder blades and let your shoulders roll. See if that's any different. So open them a little at the back. That's it. Let the shoulders roll. Let your neck be free. And relax your face. Relax your face. We'll hold a lot of tension in the jaw. So relax your face and turn up the corners of your mouth. What makes you laugh? Turn up the corners of your mouth and also just kind of blow as well. So like you're blowing out a candle. And you can do a little bit of that. That's it. So fingers can move, shoulders can roll, your neck's a bit more free. That's it. Might look a bit, it doesn't matter what it looks like, it's how it feels. And then relax your belly. Often we'll kind of just hold the tummy in. So relax your belly and relax the pelvic floor. We know what we'll call people if the pelvic floor is just a bit too tight. So if you can, just relax your pelvic floor. That's it. And then let your sit bones drop like weights on a string that drop from your spine. So fingers can move. Shoulders can roll. Yeah. Your neck is free, and you might want to just do a little infinity sign. Use your nose to do an infinity sign. And you might just notice some crackles and pops as you do that. Relax your face. Swallow. Make some saliva and swallow. Relax your jaw. Blow. Smile. Relax your eyes. Relax your belly, relax your pelvic floor, and let your sit bones drop like weights from a string from your spine. Oh, how's that?
Do you know what? I feel very relaxed, very chilled now.
Good.
But like all of that, none of it's hard. It's all, but it all feels good. But like, you don't do it, do you? Like you don't often do it. Like
and how long
that felt really good. Like my shoulders felt really good. Like I obviously am holding a lot of tension in there, which I didn't realize. And my neck, I mean, much as I love doing these interviews and I really enjoyed the conversation, I am like
full on. Yeah,
I'm like focused, and I'm not totally relaxed, but I am now. So
good.
yeah,
Good.
no, that felt really, really good. So thank you.
Excellent. My
Amazing.
pleasure, Paul. It's been really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, thank you, Gillian. We'll leave it there, and few nice comments. Lots of people have been watching it, and I'm sure more will watch it the rest of today and the rest of this week. But it'll also be an audio podcast on everywhere, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, be everywhere, and a handy little blog summarizing everything with some backlinks to your website as well. So
Marvelous.
thank you very much, and have a great day.
Paul. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Right. Thank you. See you.
See you. Bye.